to get started with my little intro talk while a couple other people might be hopping in. We're going to be talking about the spine tonight, and specifically about what's called the cerebral spinal fluid. So this practice tonight is sort of a segue from the lymphatic work that we've been doing a couple of months ago. And Lynn was just at the workshop on Sunday, so that's fresh in her mind. So in these studies I've been doing on the lymphatic system, I came across a physician. His name's Dr. Mauro Zappaterra, really fascinating guy. I posted on my Facebook page today a podcast talk with him. So if you're interested in anything we talk about tonight, it might be worthwhile to listen to his talk. It was really fascinating, but I've been like reading everything that I can get my hands on of his now that I've been introduced to him. But the concept of the cerebral spinal fluid is very much related to our lymphatic system. If you guys recall, before Christmas when we did the lymph practice, or on Sunday, we did that head massage, which is supposed to help clear the brain, right? So the cerebral spinal fluid is part of that equation. So its job, it's basically a fluid that's in our brain, and then it goes all the way down our spinal column to the sacrum in the back. And it has several functions. One of the functions is to cushion the brain. So, we move around, our brains, we don't want our brain knocking into our skull. So the fluid sac kind of keeps the brain suspended in that fluid. So it protects the brain. Another job that it has is to carry information. So it carries neurotransmitters, hormones, growth factors, things like that. It lubricates the spine, and it lubricates the nervous system, which is along the central channel of the spine. And finally, its other job is this cleansing of the brain. So we talked about this in the lymphatic class, how when we sleep, mostly when this happens, but according to Dr. Zappaterra, it can also be when we're in deep states of relaxation or meditation, that the brain can help cleanse itself of toxins, debris, things like this. And when that doesn't happen, if we're not sleeping well and we never get a chance to relax, and we're always stressed out to the max, the brain doesn't get that cleansing. And then over time, things can build up. We can get plaque in the brain, we can get toxic buildup in the brain. In the short term, it can cause things like headache, migraine, anxiety, depression, so it can relate to our emotional states. In the long term, if this continues, it can lead to neurodegenerative diseases, according to this doctor. He's Harvard trained, but he's now on the West Coast, and he works with people to manage pain without medication, and he does similar work to what I do from what I'm reading, but I don't really know. I've never taken a session with him. I don't know exactly what he does, but his talks are really fascinating. So the other thing that can be helpful is, of course, movement. So the more sedentary we are, that fluid is not going to flow as well. And it's going continuously throughout the day from the brain down the spine and back up. And every time we breathe, it helps this fluid go up and down from the brain to the sacrum. So for breathing well, that's another support for this cleansing action of the cerebral spinal fluid. But if our spine's out of alignment, we've got, misalignments in the spine, we're not moving, we're not breathing well, then that process can get impeded. So we're going to work on fluid movements for the spine tonight. A couple of weeks ago, we did internal support for the spine. That's important too, but also fluidity is important for the spine. This fluid in the spine is 99% water, as well as our bodies. Our tissues have a lot of water. We're somewhere around 50 to 70% water in our physical makeup as well. So we'll work with kind of these very fluid movements, starting with some somatic work, and then we'll progress into our flow practice. Okay, So I just gave you a lot of information, as I always do. Are there any questions about all of that? Any thoughts about all of that? Okay, so I'm going to head back to the mat and put everybody on mute, and we will get started. Okay, so go ahead and come on your back with that set up under your knees. Leg on. Okay, so it's basically 2 blocks together like this with the blanket roll on top. And then you're going to put your legs over that. Make sure your heels are on the ground, and then you can come back on your back. So I'm going to stay up so I can read a little bit more goodies to you guys. We're going to take a few minutes just to kind of settle into our breath. Okay. So as you begin to focus on your breathing, know that this breath is encouraging the movement of your cerebral spinal fluid. Every time we inhale, there starts to be this rhythmic movement of the fluid. And as we inhale, it's going up to the brain. And as we exhale, it's going down toward the sacrum. So I'd like you to start to use your power of visualization, your power of imagination, to start to tune in to imagining you could sense and kind of see this fluid in your spine. And Dr. Mauro works with that visualization quality, and I think it's really interesting. And so we know that when we pay more attention to our inner environment, we can affect it, we can change it. But most of our attention is always focused externally, all the things outside of our body. But as we know, somatics is about tuning inward, focusing inward. So get settled in your awareness of your spine, your spinal column, and the center of your brain. The center of the brain, we also have some important glands, the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. And there is the production of melatonin here. And that's one of the things that is carried by the cerebral spinal fluid. Studies are showing there's also perception of light through the skin, through the spine. The body is able to sense when we're in the sunlight and artificial light. And the sunlight, of course, is going to give us more health benefits. We know we feel better, we have more energy when the sun is out. And it's been very, very intermittent lately. We haven't had a lot of good sunlight. And these studies are showing that the cerebral spinal fluid acts almost like an internal energy power source, like a battery, and it gets charged by being exposed to the light. So really important to get good light. And I've been working myself with red light, infrared light, really good for our health, especially if we're not getting good sunlight. So we'll take a few more breaths, just kind of that sense of tuning inward. And as your body relaxes, there's going to be more flow of that fluid. As we shift into more a parasympathetic state, all the fluids in the body are going to flow better. So our lymphatic fluid, our cerebral spinal fluid, all these things are going to work better. Last 3 breaths. And after those 3 breaths, you can go ahead and set your props off to the side. And we're just going to stay on our backs. Stay on your back. Now, it's possible you might want something under your head. That's okay for some of the things. Other things, we're probably going to want to take it out. So for now, you're welcome to keep it if you like. And we're going to come back to feet flat, knees bent. And we're going to begin to work with our spinal undulation. So this is a big part of somatic work, is moving the spine. So hands on the front of your hip bones, pelvic bones. And we're going to go into our baby arch and curl. So as you inhale, tip your tailbone forward. And you're kind of going to feel like a little pressure down toward your tailbone. There's a fluid-filled sac right behind the sacrum in there where that fluid goes up and down. And then we're going to flatten and curl the tailbone up. And go ahead and do a few more rounds of that. So this pumping action of the arch and curl encourages this movement of the cerebral spinal fluid. So finding like this sort of wave-like pumping action here, and we'll take a few more rounds. So the area of the tailbone for many of us is on the tighter side, and that's because we sit, and when we sit, we kind of tuck our tailbones under us, and then the tailbone region gets tight, and that can affect our pelvic floor, make our pelvic floor dysfunction, and it can also affect this flow of the cerebral spinal fluid. So this arch and curl movement is good for releasing tension in the tailbone area and the lower back. One more. Good. Now go ahead, take a pillow out if you have something under your head, because we're going to start to lift up toward a bridge pose, and we don't want to compress our neck. So begin the arch and curl again. So tailbone tips forward, and then flatten and start to lift up a little bit. So not going all the way to bridge, but lift your sacrum off the ground like a little baby bridge. And then come back down and rock forward, arching your low back, flatten your low back and start to peel up, maybe go just a tiny bit higher. And then continue. And I'd like you to think about those segments of the spine. So we've done this other times, the little rolling bridge action. And think about your spine as like a string of pearls, and we want those pearls to come up off the ground one at a time. Go a little higher, maybe lift your back ribs now. And then start to come down one vertebra at a time. So we're trying to articulate those vertebrae. When we sit or stand for long periods of time, there's compression. And then that compression can compress the nerves, compress the discs. So articulating the vertebra can be really healthy. Now let's start to come all the way up. So now we're going to lift the ribs and maybe lift the bottom of your shoulder blades, and you come all the way up into a bridge. And then keep your tailbone up as you start to lower your upper spine, middle spine, lower spine, and then arch your back. And roll it up. And now this time, maybe add your arms. Take your arms overhead as you lift the hips. And then press your tailbone up, 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 up. You should feel a little engagement in your gluteal area. And then keep your tailbone off the ground as you let your upper body come down. Arms start to float down. Sacrum comes down, and then arch your back. So we're going to do a couple more rounds. Let's inhale on the way up. Sensing those vertebral bodies. And then exhale, rolling slowly down. And we're going to do a lot of kind of wave-like motions with the spine. 1 more time. Okay, take a pause. And we're going to straighten the legs all the way out. Flex your feet, so you make those feet flat as if you're pushing against a wall. And then hands behind the back of your head, interlace your hands. Okay, from here, we're going to make more of a side bend with the body. That was a back bend, that first segment that we did. So all of these movements that we do in yoga are so good for helping to encourage that cerebral spinal flow. Side bends, twists, back bends, forward bends. So here's a side bend. Take your upper body without lifting it. Slide your whole upper body to the right. And then slide your right hip towards your right elbow and look over your left elbow. And then come back to the center. Okay, inhale to the left now. Slide your elbow and your hip towards each other and look at your opposite elbow. And now go side to side. Keep the feet flexed. And the next time you come over to one side, I'm going to my left now, push through the opposite foot. So push through your right foot if you're on your left. And then as you go to the right, push through your left foot. So there's a lot of pieces here. If anything feels too much, just do what you can. So there's the sliding of the upper body. There's the drawing of the hip and the elbow towards each other. There's the looking over your opposite elbow. And finally, the pushing out of the foot. So it's like up slip, down slip, but with a side bend. And now as you take your last few rounds, visualize the C curve in your spine. So as I go to one side of my spine is compressed and one side is opening, fanning open. Let's do 2 more rounds on each side. So we want to repeat these somatic movements for about a minute or so. Good. And then we'll come back to the start. Relax your arms, take a pause, and just feel and sense in your body. Sometimes you can feel little energy flows, little tingles. And then tune back into your spine every time as well, visualizing that flow of the cerebral spinal fluid. Inhale, it goes up to the brain. Exhale, back down. This is also referred to as the cranial sacral rhythm. This is going from our cranium to our sacrum. Okay, bend your knees and take your arms out to a T. Straight out from your shoulders. And then we're going to take that right arm and slide it to the right and let your head roll to the right. And reach through that right side. And then go to the left. Reach the left arm to the left. Let your head roll to the left. And now keep that going because we're going to add on just like we did before, but I want to do it gradually so that your brain doesn't get overwhelmed by all the instructions. We're making a little C curve again, so you might feel a little bend in your spine as you reach side to side. Okay, now next time you slide to the right, stay there. And you're going to take your left shoulder, lift it off the floor, and roll it in towards your chest. And you get a little contraction in the front of your chest and a little lift of your shoulder blade. And then let it come down and then slide to the left. And lift your right shoulder and roll the right shoulder in towards your chest. And now go side to side. And now that you know what you're doing, you can close your eyes if you like. Tune inward. You don't need to look at the screen the whole time. And you can feel and sense into your back, into your spine. Maybe feeling your neck, your shoulders. Now we're going to keep this going and we're going to add on another piece. So the next time you go to the right, slide your arm, your head to the right, lift your left shoulder, drop your knees to the right. So now we add a twist. And then we're going to go the other side. Slide to the left, knees to the left, lift your right shoulder and roll it in toward your chest. And now go side to side, adding on the windshield wiper. So we've got a little bit of a side bend, a little bit of a twist. Every time I teach this now, I'm hearing that song in my head. Slide to the right, slide to the left. Last week it was pivot. We were talking about pivoting. And it was reminding me of the Friends episode, so we posted that. So now I'm gonna have to post that song. We're going right to left, and we're gonna add one more piece on. Next time you go to the right, stay there, lift your left shoulder. Now lift your right shin, right foot, and you're gonna twist a little more. And then go to the other side. Sliding over to the left, knees to the left, right shoulder lifts, left shin and foot lift. So you might need to look at this one for a moment if you're confused, because it's a lot of pieces. And I'm just going side to side. It's almost like that wash rag that we've done before, but I'm doing a little different action with the shoulders tonight and the reaching of the arms here. So let's do about another round or two. So I'm in the middle, so I'm gonna do one more round after this. Lots of good stimulation here into the spine and into the back. So go ahead and pause now. Let the arms relax, slide your legs out, and take a pause. And then breathe, feel and sense. Notice what you feel here. All right. I'm going to bring the knees over the hips. And then you're going to bring your palms together and your forearms kind of together. They don't have to go all the way, they don't have to touch, but draw them towards each other. And we're going to imagine this is almost like a little flipper, like a fin of a fish. And then we're going to bring our hands and arms and our feet and our head over to the right. Draw your feet towards your elbows, elbows towards your feet. Let your head roll to the right. And now go over to the left. So this is another somatic movement, and we're creating that C curve in the spine again. And just imagine you're like swimming in water here. So bringing in those visuals of the water element, since we're talking about fluidity in the spine. Both my teacher and Dr. Mauro talk about the central channel. You guys have heard me talk about the central channel before as the place where spirit dwells, as our connection to source, where we came from, wherever that might be, because the cerebral spinal fluid develops from our amniotic fluid. Let's do 2 more cycles. And it is said when we start to focus inward on that central channel, we can connect more to our own divine nature. So there's this spiritual quality. Last one, to the spine. Okay, come on down. That one was a little bit of hard work, so a little bit of core. Relax your legs, relax your arms. Take a breath or two. Tune into that respiratory rhythm and the cranial sacral rhythm. Okay, we're going to bend the knees, roll to the side, and come on up into a seated posture. And we're going to sit onto a folded blanket or a blanket or a pillow, whatever you've got, if that helps you be more comfortable. You don't have to. All right. So we'll sit up nice and tall. I would say tonight's practice can be a little bit more on the relaxing side. We are going to get to some flow, but the whole concept of getting this fluid to move is we need to be relaxed. So it'll be a little more on the relaxing side. So sit up tall, and if you are comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. Tune into your breath. Bring your awareness deep in the center of your spine. And visualize this fluid moving in your spine, like a river inside. Flowing up and flowing down. Now imagine your spine like the stem of an underwater plant. And start to let the spine kind of float a little right to left. It's very subtle, and you might not even see me moving if you were opening your eyes, but do keep them closed if you like. And just flow right to left. Visualize your spine like a plant flowing underwater. Come back to the center and start to make little circles with your spine. So your sit bones are an anchor, and your spine is just kind of flowing in a circle. Start small. And then go just a little bit bigger. Let it be relatively passive so that you're not doing a lot of work to make this circle happen. And go a little bigger. And then at some point, go ahead and reverse the circle still in the bigger circumference. And then we'll gradually make it smaller. Swaying the spine as if the spine is suspended in a body of water, which it is. Make it smaller and smaller until you're back to that really little circle. And then come back to a slow pause. Okay, so you might open your eyes now. And you're going to bring your awareness to your rib cage. So we're going to come back to a C curve. You're going to take your right rib cage and slide to the right. So back to that sliding. And then slide to the left. And again, notice as you move your rib cage right to left, one side stretching, the other side's compressing. So you might visualize the vertebra of your spine, very serpentine, like a snake. One side is kind of opening the vertebra, the other side is compressing the vertebra. And in fact, in yoga, the spine is often likened to a coiled snake. It's called the kundalini. So you may have heard the word kundalini. It's like a dormant energy in the spine that rises like a serpent up to the head. It's a very sort of esoteric, spiritual part of the yoga tradition. All right, now come back to the start. And before we moved our whole torso like in a circle, now I want you to move your rib cage. So you're gonna keep everything else steady and try to circle your rib cage around as if it's moving around your spine. So isolated, it's a little bit of core work as well. You're trying to keep that lower body stable. And even, a little bit of stillness through the arms. I'm not doing this. I'm not circling the whole torso. Okay. Rib cage isolation. And now reverse, go the other direction. Take a few more rounds. Okay. Coming back to the center, switch the crossing of your legs. And we'll stay seated for a little bit longer. We're going to turn the palms up and have the arms out to the sides. And keep it nice and loose, nice and soft. Now we're going to add a twisting action to the spine. So we're going to take a turn to the right and feel into that twist through your vertebra. And then back to center and twist the other way. So a lot of times we kind of use the hands as leverage on the knees, but I want you to kind of use your oblique muscles, your waist muscles to come into this twist. And don't be like super aggressive about it, just like a milder sensation. We don't want to go too intense here, because we want to stay in that sort of relaxed state. Now, the next time you come to the right, we're going to go ahead and stay to the right and bring the hands into the twist. Hold on to opposite knee, other hand behind you. And we're going to do a little pulsation in and out. So inhale, lengthen up as tall as you can. Exhale a little deeper into the twist. Inhale, unwind a little bit. Exhale into the twist. And let's do that 2 or 3 more cycles. Keep nice length through the spine the whole time. And then release back to the center. Good, and then let's go over to the other side. Go into your twist and inhale, lengthen up tall. Exhale, twist a little deeper, and then pulse that. Inhale, unwind a little bit. Exhale, twist. Two more rounds. Good, and release back to the center. Take a pause, let that spine come back to neutral, tune inward. Take another breath. Okay, and then we're going to come into our tabletop position, all fours. We are going to do our cat-cows, but we'll do it very articulated tonight. So I want you to not go into it just yet. So first, get yourself set up. And we're going to initiate this movement from the tailbone. So start by tipping your tailbone up, and as you continue to tip your tailbone up, the abdomen will drop, and then lift your head and lift your chest. And then start to tuck the tailbone. So don't move the upper body yet. Tuck the tail, and then eventually the head and the chest go down so that the tailbone and the head come towards each other. And then reverse, start the tailbone, then the head and the chest, and then tailbone first, and then eventually the head and the chest come down to meet it. And let's do 3 more rounds. On your own, trying to, just like we did in that flowing bridge, can you find that articulation through your spine? start the movement from the tail. And then take one more and come into child's pose after you finish this next one. Take a little rest the arms. We're gonna do a couple things in our tabletop before we come up to stand. Okay, back to tabletop. We're gonna do a C curve again. So now take your head over to the right, your hip draws toward your right shoulder, and move your feet over to the right. And you're gonna do the opposite. Take your feet over to the left, head over to the left, contract the side waist, and go side to side. So you're gonna do a little C curve, and adding the feet in gives you a little bit deeper side bend. Keep breathing and just stay nice and fluid through your spines. Whole practice, just think about being in water, moving like water. Last round. Back to the center and into child's pose again. And then this time, let your hips rock side to side. Okay, so let's go ahead and take our blanket off so we can do a little bit of more active work. And we'll find our downward facing dog from here. Okay, so once you come to dog, let's go ahead and paddle it out. Bend one knee, then the other. Maybe let your hips move a little bit. Get a little swivel going on. And that gives you a slight little twisty side bend in your spine as well, if you do that little swivel. Last week was pivot. This week is slide and swivel. Come back to the center. And we're gonna do a little bit of a rolling dog plank movement. So from here, start to come up on your tippy toes and roll your chest forward. Let your head stay tucked in. And then when you get to plank, unroll your head, drop knees if you're feeling a little tired tonight. You wanna support your arms. And then you're gonna start to lift your sit bones up and roll back into a dog. Let's try that a few rounds. Come high up on your toes, head looks back toward your toes. Keep your head in until the very last, unroll the head, stay in plank or drop your knees. And then to go back, start from your sit bones, your tailbone, reach it up high, and then roll back into your dog. Last one, we're gonna lower to the belly, roll into your plank, let the head come out last, and then lower down. Inhale to a cobra. And now we're gonna roll through our cobras. Bring the head down, tuck your chin in. Start to curl up, but bring your chin toward your chest. And then unfurl your head very last. Maybe look up. And then like a wave, start to roll down. Chin comes in and roll up. Keep your shoulders back as you come up. And then roll it down. One more time. Chin comes in, roll it up. Look up. And then roll it down. Okay, downward facing dog. From here, walk it forward, top of the mat. Okay, come into halfway lift. So hands on thighs. Fold over your legs. And let's make this a spinal wave as well. So inhale, roll up halfway, head comes up last. And then roll, starting to bring your chest down, then your head down. And make a few waves like this. Okay? So try to get that sense of fluidity in your spine. One more. Come all the way up this time, reach your arms overhead and draw your hands to your heart. Okay, take your feet outer hips distance apart, so you're a little wider through your legs. And we're gonna do a ragdoll circle. So we're gonna take the arms overhead. Keep your knees a little soft, your arms nice and loose. And we're gonna start to flow over to the right. Come all the way down and be really loose through your arms and your spine. And then all the way up, and you're just being really floppy like a rag doll. And you're gonna go 3 times in this direction. So that's 1, and this is 2. 1 more. And now we'll go 3 in the opposite direction. So come down like a rag doll, be really loose. Your legs are doing more of the work. So to bring yourself up, root down into your feet. Last one. Good. Reach the arms up, inhale. Exhale, fold forward, nice and flowy as you fold. Halfway lift. Plant your hands, step back, plank pose, top of a push-up. Knees can drop if you like. Lower down. Inhale, roll through a cobra. And back down. Downward facing dog. Inhale here, exhale, walk it forward, top of the mat. Halfway lift, roll the spine down. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Step your feet apart a little bit. Ragdoll 1 time each side. Reach the arms up, little bend in the knees, circle to the right. All the way around, coming up, circle to the left. Good, flow it all the way down to the ground. Step the feet back in, halfway lift. Step back, plank pose. Lower down. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, down dog. Okay, we're gonna go through a down dog, up dog flow next. So bring your knees to the floor for a moment. I'm gonna show you modified first, and then I'll show you full version. So some of you are gonna stick with modified, some of you are gonna go full version. Take your hands a little forward of your shoulders. So you're in a long tabletop position. From here, drop your hips to the ground and lift your chest, take your shoulders back. So that's a modified up dog. And you're gonna go from there back to a child's. Okay, so let's try that a few rounds. Hips drop, chest lifts, modified up dog, back to child's pose. Okay, you can keep going with that, or we're gonna do down dog to up dog. So now you can lift up to down dog, and then start to roll forward, let the hips drop. Now knees can either touch the floor or they can stay off the floor, and then roll it back to dog. So it takes a lot of upper body strength. So your choice, modified up dog to child's, or down dog to up dog, Either knees down or up, your choice, as per your upper body strength. And let's do a few more. So good for the flexibility of the spine. One more round. Good, and then everyone knees down, child's pose. Take a little rest after that hard work. And I'm gonna read a little passage to you as you take that rest. I thought this was really interesting. So we all know the saying that we're only as young as our spine is flexible. So this is from an article, and I posted the article on my page. You can read the whole thing. But she writes, imagine when you were 4 years old. You could do anything you wanted. You didn't complain. Your spine was flexible. You didn't have any rigidity, and you were fluid and supple. Then we get older. And she says, do we get older just because of age? Or do we get older because of the rigidity that is built into our lives? As adults, we hold still. We adopt certain postures. We avoid other postures, maybe because it would be weird or childish. But now here we are older, and I want to be more childish, and I want that childish fluidity in my body. So think about all the fun things you do when you're a kid that you stop doing as you get older. And of course, that saying applies. If we don't use it, we lose it. All right, so let's go ahead, come back to down dog when you're ready. And we're gonna start to come through to a lunge. You have two options. You can bring your knees to the floor and step forward, or reach your right leg straight up and step through. So we're in a lunge, and then we're gonna drop the back knee down to the floor. If you need to, pull in your blocks if you feel like it's hard to reach the floor, okay? So option to have the blocks under your hands. We're gonna inhale in this position in the lunge, and as you exhale, we're gonna slide back to a half split. And then we're gonna repeat, and you might reach your arms up, or you might keep your hands on your blocks the whole time. And we're gonna repeat that flow a few rounds. So a back bend to a forward bend. Hi, Tinkerbell. My kitty came in. They're behaving a lot better now. One more time. Good, now this next time you come forward, stay there, and take your right arm and reach it up into a twist. And then you're gonna bring your right hand inside your right foot. So I'm gonna move my blocks out for this one. You might widen your right foot a little to the side. We're gonna repeat. Inhale the right arm up. Exhale, hand comes inside, and maybe bow in toward the floor a bit. Inhale, reach the arm up. Exhale, fold in. Now next round, option to lift your back knee. You can keep it down if you want. Inhale, lift that knee up. Exhale, bow in. And repeat. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, bow in. One more time. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, bow in. Okay, now walk that foot back into center. If you're using your blocks, bring them back in. I'm going to show it with the blocks. I think this next move will be more accessible with the blocks for most people. We're going to straighten the front leg and come into twisted triangle now. So now back toes are going to tuck. As you inhale, you're going to straighten both legs and reach the top arm up, right arm up. As you exhale, you're going to bring your hand down and your knee down. And we're going to repeat. Straighten both legs, reach up into the twist. Exhale, come back down. We're going to do that 3 more times. Inhale, reach up, both legs straight. Exhale, down. 1 more time. Good. Okay. Step that foot back into tabletop position. Come into child's pose. Downward facing dog pose. Take an inhale, exhale, walk forward, top of the mat, halfway lift. Fold forward, flow the arms all the way up, and hands to the heart. Okay, we're gonna do that on the other side, starting with our ragdoll circles. This time, go to your left first, widen your feet a little bit, reach the arms up and circle. Be really passive with those arms, other direction. Reach the arms up, flow all the way down through center. Walk the feet a little back in, halfway lift. Step back, plank pose. Lower down. Flow through your cobra. Downward facing dog. 2 options. You can bring your knees down to step forward or lift the left leg high, step it through. Back knee down. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, hands to the floor or the blocks. Then we're going to go from the lunge into half split. So inhale here, exhale, shift back, straightening the leg. Bend the knee, maybe the arms come up. Hands come down, shift it back. Go ahead and do 3 more rounds. Good. 2 more. 1 more time. Good. Okay, hands to the floor or the blocks. And I'm going to go ahead and widen my front foot. And you can either bring your blocks into center or you can bring your hands to the floor. We're going to start the twist. So from here, inhale, reach your left arm up into the twist. And then bow inward inside your front leg. Inhale, reach it up. Exhale, bow in. And again. You can keep going with that, or you're going to add the back knee lift. So inhale, lift the back knee. We're going to stay with knees bent for this part. That'll come next with the straight leg. 1 more. Good, now we're gonna walk that foot back in towards center, and if you were using blocks, grab the blocks again. Now we're gonna come into that straight leg version. Just gonna fix my mat here a second. Okay. So from your lunge, we're gonna lift both legs, straighten both legs, and reach the left arm up into the twist, and then come back down. And repeat. Inhale, open up into the twist, straighten both legs. Exhale, back down. Okay, couple more rounds. Last one. Knee down, step your front foot back, come into child's pose. Okay, take a couple more breaths in your child's pose. I can't believe I just looked at the time at 7 o'clock already. So we're gonna start to come into our ball work in a moment. So just take another breath or two in child's pose. So most of you have done balls with me before. If you haven't and you don't know how it's going to feel for you, have an extra blanket nearby. Sometimes the balls can be a little intense when we've not done it before. So if you feel the balls are too intense for you, you're going to put a blanket over the balls to make them softer. And if that's still too intense, you can skip the balls and just do the movement without the balls. So we're going to come onto our back, keep on a blanket nearby for the padding, but also maybe something for under your head, because we're going to do the balls up the whole spine. And as you get to your upper spine, you're going to need a blanket for your head because you're going to feel like you're dropping back. We're going to start with the balls at the sacrum. So right above the top of the sacrum, which would be your lower lumbar, you're going to have the balls right above the sacrum. Okay, so go ahead and come down. And we're going to lift the hips up and place the balls right at the top of the sacrum. And just let the back settle into the balls for a few breaths. And you want the balls relatively close together, so they're kind of right outside of your spine. And we're going to hit the muscles that go up the sides of the spine to create more spinal fluidity, release any tension. Widen your feet a little bit and go into a little baby windshield wiper right to left. So you don't have to go all the way. And you're going to feel those balls kind of pressing into the muscles on the side of the spine. I'm going to squeeze mine a little closer together because they're not close enough. Okay, come to a pause and now move them up a little bit. They're still like above your sacrum and below your rib cage, so they're in the lumbar region. Maybe now your hips can get to the floor, your tailbone gets to the floor, maybe not, might be just grazing the floor. Hands behind the back of the head. Now this is a similar movement to what we did in the beginning. We did it with straight legs. Slide your upper body to the right and draw your right hip and your right shoulder towards each other, and then over to the other side, and we make that C curve. Going right to left. Maybe you're going to look at your opposite elbow. So as you go to the left, you look up to the right. Okay, come back to the center. Now we're going to move the balls up again. Now toward the bottom of your ribs, but still below the ribs. They're not on the ribs yet, just like right to the edge of your rib cage. And let's do a little windshield wiper again. You don't have to go all the way, like a partial movement side to side, and you'll feel those balls kind of press into the spinal muscles. And then come back to center, hands behind the back of the head again. Keep the hands there and go into arch and curl. So tip your tailbone down, and you're going to get light on the blocks, maybe come off of the blocks, and then tip your tailbone off the floor, and you're going to get more pressure. Now start with upper body just staying where it is. Don't move the upper body yet. Try that a few times, because once we add the upper body, it's going to increase the intensity. So you may even want to skip it. You might want to stick with this. If you want to add on, inhale into the arch position, and then as you curl your tailbone up, lift your upper body and then those balls go deeper into the skin. Inhale, arch. Exhale, curl up. We're going to do 3 more, and then we're going to move the balls up again. After your third one, let's go ahead and slide those balls up. Now they're going to go into those back ribs. Now, if anyone has any like brittle bones, osteoporosis, you might want to skip being on the bone. So I would move them up then to the shoulder blade area because we're going to go there next. And we're just going to do a little windshield wiper here. We're not going to do a whole lot because we don't want to put too much pressure here at the back ribs. Okay, back to center. Now you may have to lift up. We're going to slide those balls behind the back of your heart. So in the back of the shoulder blades, so in between your shoulder blades. Here's where you might want to have a pillow now for your head. And remember, you can also use a blanket over the balls, okay? So now it might feel like your head's dropping back. That blanket should help. And this time we're going to go into pulley. So take your arms straight up toward the ceiling and reach one arm at a time toward the ceiling. And then we get that extra little pressure of the balls into the spine. So good to release this middle back region. This is where we tend to get kyphosis, which is a rounding of our upper back. This was really interesting. So the person that I've been studying with, well, one of the people, this isn't Dr. Mauro, this is someone else, but she was talking about the spine in the Grey's Anatomy reference book, you know, the TV show, but there's a book called The Grey's Anatomy, right? So she said decades ago, the spine was a lot straighter in the pictures. And now it's showing bigger curves because that's the modern spine due to sitting, due to rounding over our desks. We have a deeper lumbar curve and a deeper spinal thoracic curve because of sitting and rounding our back so much and tucking our tailbone under. And once the tailbone goes out of alignment, everything else on the way up compensates. And then we have compensation patterns. Okay, let those arms come down. And we're going to lift up again. Now the balls are going to go in the back of the head to the occipital region. So it's going to go at your hairline or slightly above your hairline. So not in your neck. You want it kind of at the base of your skull. And this whole work we've been doing is craniosacral. So the cranium is your head, the sacrum's at the bottom. So they're the two bookends of your spine. And that flow of the fluid in between the head and the sacrum is our craniosacral rhythm. Let your head rest into the balls and then rock your head from right to left. So we release a little tension in the back of the skull. Some of you might need to hold on to the balls. That's okay. If you can just relax your arms. And I do use the pillow or blanket here. It helps keep the balls from slipping when they're on your mat. And then come back to stillness. Take a pause. Let your head rest into the balls. And breathe and tune inward. All right, so we're going to go ahead and come off of the balls, take them out. And just pause for a moment. We just did bottom to top, a myofascial release along the spine. So let your spine kind of melt into the ground after that release. And then let's go ahead and bring the knees into the chest and give them a good squeeze. Maybe you want to rock or make circles. And if you feel like a happy baby, you could go ahead and move into the next phase there or stay with the knee hug. Up to you. And then we're going to come into Shavasana. You might want to use that same block setup with your blocks and your blanket on top and put your legs over that. I'm not going to do that because I've got my little kitty. She's on my blanket here, so I'm going to let her be. So put your blocks and blankets under your knees if you want. And we're going to come into our resting pose. So take your time to arrive there. And then once you get settled, come back to finding your diaphragmatic breath and tuning into your spinal column and the cerebral spinal fluid. Feel your spine rest into the ground and bring your awareness deep inside the vertebra, deep inside the spinal cord, into this channel where the fluid flows. And imagine that it's now cleansing your brain. So we've come into a state of relaxation after moving through all those fluid, rolling, side bending, twisting actions in the spine to stimulate the flow of the fluid. And now just have a sense that it's cleansing your brain, releasing any toxins, renewing, rejuvenating your spine, lubricating and nourishing your central nervous system, and bathing and supporting your brain. And every breath helps this pulsatory flow. The movement of the diaphragm affects the vertebra of your spine. So I'm going to share a little reading as you continue to rest. This is written by Richard Wagamies. I am my silence. I am not the busyness of my thoughts or the daily rhythm of my actions. I am not the stuff that constitutes my world. I am not my talk. I am my silence. I am the consciousness that perceives all of these things. When I go to my consciousness, to the great pool of silence that observes the intricacies of my life, I am aware that I am me. I take a little time each day to sit in silence so that I can move outward in balance into the great clamor of living. So when we go inward, We nourish ourselves, we support ourselves, balance our nervous system so that we can go outward with less reactivity. We can go outward into all of the things that we need to do in life with more ease, with more calm, with more balance. So let's take a couple more minutes here to continue to rest. So we'll take a moment now, start to come back to awareness, noticing the effect of your practice, and begin those smaller movements and deeper breaths. And take your time, make any movements you like before coming onto your side. Go ahead, take a pause there. And when you feel ready to, go ahead and return to a seated posture. And we're going to take a couple moments to sit up tall. So feel free to support yourself if you need something under your sit bones. And then if you're comfortable, close your eyes, find a nice tall spine. And then tuning into the breath. And as you inhale, visualize that fluid filling the ventricles of your brain, the skull. And as you exhale, imagine that fluid going back down to the sacrum, filling that little fluid sac behind the sacrum. And continue. I even like to visualize this little column in the center of the spine as a column of light, of illumination. This fluid has light receptors. It can sense when we're in the light, telling our body to, create those hormones like our melatonin. It's really important to get the light when we can. Allow yourself to go in and go into that place where spirit dwells deep inside. Inhale, filling the brain. Bathing the brain. Exhale back down to the sacrum. Let's take 3 more breaths. After your 3rd breath, let's go ahead and place our hands together in front of the heart space. And we'll take a nice inhale, and as you exhale, bow into your heart. Namaste.